children's tale tells of a wicked witch who demanded a sacrifice from a king, lest she cast a baleful spell upon his town. The king refused her demand, and instead gave a quest to a knight to hunt the witch down and meet her doom. Agredios laments that his search of the forbidden woods took 3 days longer than he expected, and that every extra minute will add an hour to the lecture he'll receive. He emerges from the trees and gazes down at his town. Holding up a fat pheasant, Agredios decides to get into his mother's good graces first, believing his father can't scold him if his mouth is stuffed with meat. He leaps over the town wall, planning to enter his mother's study from the back. Peeking into the study, he finds it empty and sighs at his bad luck, as she should be there at this hour. He calls out that he's back, announcing he brought a gift for his father too. He worries that if he can't keep his father in good spirits, he'll have to give up his hunting trips. He calls for his parents again, but is met with an eerie silence. He opens the door to his parents' room and sees his father collapsed on the floor. The pheasant he was carrying slips from his grasp and thumps to the ground. He reels back in shock, realizing they're not breathing. In disbelief, Agredios shakes his father, asking what's going on. He notices letters clutched in his father's hand. One letter is addressed to him, and the other to someone named Griamelda. As he begins reading the letter, he hears a door bang open behind him. The letter from his father explains that a week ago, hunters brought word that the witch was on the move. He reads that not long afterward, the gates were sealed. His father's letter describes how a grave wind then blew through their land. The letter reveals that their household has fallen and that his mother is gone as well. His father writes that he will soon join them, addressing him as his son Agredios. Overcome with grief and shock, Agredios vomits on the floor. His father's letter concludes by entrusting him, as his heir and the new Margrave, with a final command. His father's command was to guide their people in his stead, but as Agredios looks out at the town, calling out for anybody, he sees only streets littered with the dead. There is no one left to guide. Clutching the letter, his grief turns to pure rage. He throws open the gates and screams into the empty town, vowing that the witch will die for this. Agredios journeys into the forbidden woods. Nursery tales tell of a witch who lives within, but his father, Margrave Oromelian, had inherited a royal charter to settle these very woods. He checks his map, which marks the witch's location and warns that those who get too close collapse. Trusting his mask to protect him, he ventures forward. The woods are home to strange beasts and unknown magic, which the huntsmen say is proof of the witch's existence. He observes a massive Tauroth and decides it's best not to startle the creature. He finds it odd that there are no animals around the stream. Following the wind's direction, he senses he is on the right track and that the witch must be close. He finally spots a dark, ominous figure in a clearing. With a glare of determination, he thinks to himself that he's finally found the foul witch. Without hesitation, Agredios drops his heavy pack, preparing for the confrontation. He unsheathes a massive blade from the side of his pack and readies his attack. As he charges, he resolves that if the creature is human on the outside, he will skewer her through the heart. Agredios brutally impales the witch, twisting the blade without a moment's pause. The witch lets out a silent scream as he yanks the blade free. He pulls a bolt-like device from his belt, preparing another assault. An explosion engulfs the witch as the bolt makes contact. Agredios observes the reaction, thinking that if she's immortal, it's all the better. He prepares another barrage of explosives, ignoring her pained cries. The witch screams in agony, crying out for the ones who raised her and her men. She lashes out with her hair, but it's not enough to stop the onslaught. Agredios grabs her, telling her that she killed 522 people. He adds that he knew every last one of them. He promises to slaughter her once for every life she took, his face contorted with rage. He continues his relentless assault, slamming the witch against a tree. The force of the impact sends shockwaves through the forest. Agredios continues his attack without mercy. He stands over her battered form, demanding to know what's wrong and telling her to get up. He growls that they're not done yet, as the witch struggles to move. The witch screams, asking why and who he is. Agredios is stunned, realizing she can talk like a human. He furiously questions how she dares speak their tongue after killing his father, mother, and everyone else. He pins her down and demands to know why she destroyed his village. The witch screams that she didn't do it. He grabs her, asking why she would leave this place if she's innocent. She weakly explains that it was because the wind blew. Unconvinced, Agredios shoves her to the ground. He tells her she's coming with him. He orders her to stay in front, warning that one wrong move will mean her death. The witch struggles to her feet but collapses again. Agredios coldly tells her to walk or die. The witch protests that she can't stand up. He impatiently uses a tool to lasso her. The witch cries out, begging for no more freezing, burning, or hurting. Agredios tells her to shut up, warning she'll attract beasts, and throws her over his shoulder. As they travel, he again notes the lack of animals and wonders if she wards them off. Agredios remembers his village as it once was, full of life and happy people. The memory fades, replaced by the grim reality of the present, as he leads the witch through the silent, corpse-strewn streets. He tells the witch that if she really isn't the one who did this, she must tell him who did. Overwhelmed by grief, Agredios collapses before her. The witch gestures to the forest and explains that the woods cursed them. Agredios, clutching his head, struggles to understand what that could possibly mean. She warns that this is only the start and more curses are coming soon. The curse brings a warped death that rots the land, befouls water, stills the wind, and wilts all life. Horrified, Agredios asks if this means it will happen again somewhere else and if they can stop it. The witch demonstrates her power on the carcass of the Tauroth. Agredios asks what she did. She explains that she corrected the flow of death, as it was all warped inside the creature. Agredios examines a body and realizes the witch is right. This isn't natural death, as even the birds have left the corpses alone. He understands that the woods robbed his people of their natural deaths, while the witch says she will gather the bodies. He tells her he will line them up in the main road and wants her to send them off. The witch agrees. He exhaustedly arranges the bodies of his people. As he works, he recalls one last thing from his father's letter. The letter reminisced about the first pheasant Agredios killed and the night they ate its skewered meat. His father recalled scolding him for shirking his duties as heir to go hunting. His mother repeated the story until the whole family was sick of her voice. But his father admitted the truth was different. His father confessed in the letter that the pheasant was delicious. It was so delicious, in fact, that before he knew it, he had eaten Gria's share too. His father's final wish was that at their funeral feast, Agredios would serve his new subjects something even better. The memory of his smiling parents overlays the grim sight of their bodies as he finishes reading. Agredios finally places his parents among the dead. The witch urges him to send them off. She tells him that doing so would honor his father more than he knows. As her magic flows over them, Agredios whispers their names, mother and father. Kneeling in prayer, Agredios grieves, wishing he could take all the scolding they could give, if only they could eat grilled pheasant together one more time. Once the last body is laid to rest, the witch asks if that is everyone. Agredios rises, confirming that it is. Agredios realizes the Gillans and their twins, Percy and Perla, were not among the dead and had hoped the anglers were safe at sea. He sees 2 sets of adult footprints, indicating they propped each other up as they tried to flee to the sea. He finds their bodies on the beach. They didn't make it. He doubts the twins survived either. The witch flinches as he calls out to her. He rushes back to the witch, carrying the 2 girls, exclaiming that they're still breathing. He desperately tells her she has to help them, that someone has to survive. The witch gently blows a magical dust over the girls. Their labored gasps soften. Their breathing steadies into peaceful sleep as Agredios watches in stunned silence. As tears stream down her face, the witch whispers the girls' names Perla and Percy. They briefly awaken and ask for Master Agredios. Seeing him cry, one of the girls reaches out to wipe his tear, telling him not to cry. Agredios turns away from the girls to face the witch. He addresses her respectfully as Milady Witch. He tells her that he has been nothing but cruel, yet she still heard his plays. Tears streaming down his face, he thanks her for saving Perla and Percy's lives. The witch thanks him in return. He sees that she is crying on their behalf. He realizes no apology could make up for his cruelty. Now holding the title of Margrave, he kneels before her and beseeches her once more. He declares that it is the duty his father left him to restore these lands, so the girls can live as they did before. He must endure so his people and land can stand stronger, even if the heavens themselves sent this disaster. He begs of her to lend him her power and wisdom. The witch completely breaks down, screaming that she is going home. Agredios and the girls look on, bewildered by her sudden outburst. As she thrashes on the ground, the 2 girls cover Agredios's eyes. She continues to wail, terrified that if she says no, he will freeze, burn, and hurt her all over again. An official reports that a caravan has turned back. He is instructed to send word at once. The woman receiving the news realizes with horror that this means Oromelion's march has been annihilated. The woman from the woods kneels over the bodies of the twins' parents, whispering their names in a quiet farewell. Agredios gently asks the girls if they have told their parents goodbye, and they quietly confirm. The twins' parents lie still on the sand, victims of the curse. The girls put on a brave face, reassuring Agredios that they are okay. Agredios is taken aback by their strength. Percy recalls her parents' words, acknowledging the dangers of their profession. Perla adds that their parents' wish was for them to continue living together, now with him. The twins curiously ask Agredios about their new companion. Agredios struggles with how to introduce her, wanting to avoid the word witch. He settles on calling her a magician, which excites the girls. Percy and Perla bow deeply as they introduce themselves. The magician reciprocates with a graceful bow of her own. Agredios watches her unexpected gesture with surprise. Ganom-Sesha smiles gently as the girls walk with her. Watching them, Agredios notes her apparent fondness for the children. One of the girls yawns, noting that it will be dark soon. As they walk, Perla asks for the magician's name, and she introduces herself as Ganom-Sesha. Inside the dark house, Agredios prepares to light a lantern. He finds the girls have already dozed off, still holding onto Ganom-Sesha. Agredios gently picks up one of the sleeping girls. He leads Ganom-Sesha and the other twin inside. After placing the girls in one bed, he tells Ganom-Sesha the bed is theirs. Agredios bids them good night and quietly closes the door. Ganom-Sesha quietly approaches the bed where the girls are sleeping. She lies down beside them, and they immediately cuddle up to her in their sleep. Alone in the hall, Agredios sits slumped against the wall, overwhelmed. Agredios slams his fist on the desk, frustrated by his own perceived inadequacy. He paces, despairing over his inability to fade everyone, let alone rebuild the town. He worries about hunting, cooking, and how he will manage everything alone. He attempts to collect himself, trying to methodically plan his next steps. He considers seeking help from the crown, and desperately wishes his sister Gria was there. Agredios bolts upright, startled awake. He curses, realizing he nodded off while planning. He dashes into the kitchen, determined to make breakfast. His determination quickly turns to confusion as he struggles with the basics of baking. Frustrated, he abandons the idea of baking and resolves to go hunting. He goes to inform the others, knocking on their door. He opens the door to find the room empty, a look of shock on his face. Agredios searches outside, speculating where they might have gone. He reflects on the incredible resilience of the two young girls. He spots tracks on the ground, realizing they are all together. He notices the tracks are fresh, but questions why they are heading for the sea. Following the path, he sees the three of them in the distance among the coastal rocks. The girls shout encouragement to each other as they fish in the shallows. With a quick slap, one of the girls catches a large, eel-like creature. Perla casually tosses a fish into the basket, startling Ganom-Sesha. Percy explains to Ganom-Sesha that if they toss the fish's head back, another big one will come. The girls are pleased with their full basket of fish. They decide to head back, excited that Master Ag will love their catch. Ganom-Sesha shudders with unease as she walks in the water. The girls ask if she's scared, explaining the tingly feeling is from being barefoot. A large wave suddenly approaches. It crashes over Ganom-Sesha, who screams in shock as she's submerged. The force of the wave sends all three of them sprawling onto the sand. The girls laugh heartily, asking a drenched Ganom-Sesha if this is her first time at sea. A small shrimp-like creature clings to Ganom-Sesha's cheek. The girls' laughter continues as they surround the shocked Ganom-Sesha. One of the girls pulls a tasty-looking creature from Ganom-Sesha's hair. They continue to pick more presents from her hair, congratulating her on the nice catch. Perla cheerfully tells her the sea is saying sorry for teasing her. Percy agrees, pointing to the shrimp as proof that the sea gave her presents. Ganom-Sesha spits out a mouthful of seawater, looking miserable. The three of them stand together on the shore, watching the sun rise over the ocean. Ganom-Sesha looks out at the spectacle with wide-eyed wonder. She touches her face, feeling the warmth of the sun, and is deeply moved. The twins each take one of Ganom-Sesha's hands in theirs. Moved, she brings their small, warm hands to her face. The girls cheerfully suggest they return to Master Ag's to cook their catch. Suddenly, Agredios's voice calls out to them from down the beach. The girls wave enthusiastically, calling out his name. Agredios runs towards them, relieved but confused about their beach excursion. Agredios looks into their basket, impressed by how many fish they caught. The twins explain that when the tide goes out, all you need are your hands. He congratulates them on their hard work and declares it's time for breakfast. He skewers the pheasant he caught, remembering it in the excitement. Agredios tends to the roasting meat, thinking it should still be good. One of the girls skillfully scales a fish, preparing it for cooking. Agredios recognizes that the girls' inherited skills will be essential for their survival. He sets the food on the table, and the girls eagerly welcome the meal. He offers some food to Ganom Sesha, who seems hesitant. Ganom Sesha looks at the food with a confused expression. Ganom Sesha drools uncontrollably, while Agredios questions her odd reaction. She seems completely baffled by the concept of eating. Agredios explains that this is how humans nourish their bodies. She stares intently at the food presented to her. Noticing her drool, Agredios concludes she must be hungry and offers her a bite. Terrified of the fork, Ganom Sesha begs him not to stab her and refuses to eat. She tentatively takes a piece of meat with her fingers and eats it. Her eyes widen in surprise at the taste. Perla triumphantly brings the cooked shrimp to the table. Percy kindly offers a shrimp to Ganom Sesha, telling her she caught it. Ganom Sesha cautiously eats the shrimp, admitting that it tastes good. Agredios watches, relieved that she seems to like it. He reflects that with the girls' help, they will be able to get by. Agredios finally takes a bite of his own cooking. The twins compliment him, telling him his fish is delicious. Filled with new optimism, Agredios throws open the windows. His peaceful moment is broken when he hears a voice calling for help. A young woman has collapsed just outside, desperately crying for help. A young villager named Bucci collapses in the street, frantically warning Agredios of an approaching monster. In tears, she screams that a giant fortress bee is chasing her parents and Bucci himself. Agredios listens with grim intensity, realizing the gravity of the threat. Bucci explains that the creature is massive and heading toward them from the south. Agredios knows that fighting a fortress bee usually requires a full squad. However, he believes that with Ganom Sesha's help, they have a chance. Ganom Sesha rushes to bring the girls inside. He instructs another villager to take Bucci to safety, telling her to leave the monster to them. Without a moment to spare, Agredios grabs Ganom Sesha and pulls her along, apologizing as they dash out of the village. He spots smoke in the distance. He points out a cart being pursued by the monster. He quickly directs Ganom Sesha to cast her root spell on the creature. Agredios lays out the plan. Ganom Sesha will use her magic to aim for the fortress bee's belly and flip it over, allowing him to deliver the final blow. The monster continues its destructive rampage, stomping towards them. He tells her to get ready on his signal. The gigantic fortress bee bears down on them. On Agredios' signal, Ganom Sesha unleashes her spell, channeling magic into the ground before them. The spell fails, only a few small, weak roots emerge from the ground. Ganom Sesha realizes there are no large roots nearby for her to control. Seeing the plan has failed, Agredios grabs her and pulls her out of harm's way. He shouts that it was foolish to think it would be so easy, as he tells the others to get Ganom Sesha out of there. Agredios tells Ganom Sesha to run away and not be a fool, insisting that he will take the monster down himself. He knows he has to stop it before it reaches the village. Steeling himself, he decides it's all up to him and turns to face the creature alone. He throws his spear, but it shatters against the bee's tough hide. Agredios' spear glances harmlessly off the bee's hardened shell. He dodges a powerful swipe from the beast. Realizing he can't stab it, he decides he will have to crush it instead, drawing a heavy hammer. He notices a defense swarm protecting the creature's head. Undeterred, he declares that while they might fight the flames, they won't be able to stop his next attack as he swings the heavy hammer. The hammer finds its mark, and Agredios notes with satisfaction that the creature felt the blow. Enraged, the fortress bee lets out a roar and retaliates. The creature slams Agredios with immense force. The bee's powerful jaws clamp down on Agredios' arm, but his armor holds against the pressure. He slips free from its grasp. He pulls out a bladed wire, taunting the beast that its strong jaws are meaningless against his weapon. He whips the wire around the creature's mandibles. Agredios struggles, but manages to use the wire to pry the monster's jaws open. With its mouth sealed shut, the creature is left defenseless. Seizing the opportunity, Agredios raises his hammer and declares it's his turn to strike. He brings the hammer down with crushing force, shattering the bee's exoskeleton. Suddenly, an attack swarm appears. He recognizes it as the one that had been chasing the cart. Exhausted, he wonders why it came back. The entire swarm converges on the wounded fortress bee. The swarm is together, buzzing hungrily for blood. He considers making a run for the forest where he could use his ropes, but knows he'd be caught before he got there, doubting his cloak could withstand the attack. With the swarm closing in, Agredios realizes his only option is to push through them and reach the hive itself. He resolves to finish the fight somehow and charges forward. Suddenly, a figure on horseback charges directly toward the battle. As the swarm engulfs him, Agredios looks on in stunned silence. Agredios leaps onto the creature's back. The rider is Ganom Sesha, now clad in armor and wielding a flaming sword, shouting at Agredios to aim for the neck. Ganom Sesha lands on the fortress bee's head, plunging her flaming sword deep into its skull. The fiery blade sizzles as it sinks into the monster's flesh. With a combined, desperate effort, Agredios and Ganom Sesha struggle to overpower the writhing beast. Ganom Sesha rides off toward the village. As the swarm closes in on him, Agredios shouts for Ganom Sesha to forget him and find the twins. He yells for her to find a net and glue. Finally, he calls out the twins' names, Percy and Perla. The villagers, including the twins, watch from a window as a rider arrives. Ganom Sesha removes her helmet and urgently calls out for Lady Gryamelda, pleading that Agredios needs her help. In the village, a woman rushes to get a large net from the tailors. The twins, Percy and Perla, bring out a pot of glue, noting that there isn't much left. The armored Ganom Sesha tells them to use what they have and warns them to be careful of her hot sword. A villager announces she will spread out the net. The twins describe the glue as gloopy and stinky. The term confuses the witch, who is also helping. The witch uses her magic hair to spread the glue across the net, amazing the children. One of the villagers recoils from the smell, which is worse than the glue itself. Suddenly, the armored Ganom Sesha grabs the prepared net, announcing she'll take it to Agredios. Gryamelda frantically tries to stop her, warning that heading into the full swarm is suicide. She resolves to draw the swarm toward the village. The armored Ganom Sesha desperately tries to create distance between herself and the pursuing bees. Spotting the village ahead, she hopes the net is ready for them. She is met by a surprising sight, Agredios clad in a strange protective suit. Agredios wonders who is in the armor, then realizes it must be Gria. He snatches the net from her and prepares for the swarm. Together, they heave the massive, glue-coated net, successfully trapping the buzzing swarm. The sticky substance on the net adheres to the bees. Agredios struggles with the immense weight, but declares their plan a success. Agredios instructs her to roll the net to crush the captured bees. They work in tandem, tumbling the heavy bundle across the field. The ordeal leaves both of them breathless and exhausted. Exhausted, Agredios removes his helmet, catching his breath. Ganom Sesha does the same, equally spent from the effort. Ganom Sesha reaches out to Agredios. He helps her to her feet. They stand in silence, the intensity of the battle still hanging between them. Agredios' first question to Ganom Sesha is, surprisingly, whether she knows how to bake bread. Flustered, she replies that she can make cake, but wonders about the importance of his question. Agredios suggests they head home for now. He decides they can talk once she's settled. Meanwhile, the other villagers, including the witch and the children, celebrate their safety. Back in the village, Gryamelda rushes to embrace them, relieved they are safe. She playfully complains that the protective suit Ganom Sesha wore is hers and smells awful. The village elder directs everyone into a shed to clean up. He asks Agredios to fetch a bucket of water. Inside the shed, the witch expresses concern about the dark if they close the door. Agredios splashes them with water anyway, causing her to shriek. Afterwards, Ganom Sesha has a clever idea, telling everyone to flap their arms to dry off. The villagers relax, commenting on how good it feels. The witch struggles under the weight of her waterlogged hair. The children gather around to help, trying to wring it out. They offer to hold her heavy hair so she can get up. Ganom Sesha watches, noticing that the witch's clothes seem to have sloughed off in the water. The children, soaked to the bone, ask Agredios if they can change clothes. Ganom Sesha reminds him that not everyone has more than one outfit, then leads them to the mill. Using her sword, Ganomsesha activates the large fans, creating a powerful warm gust of wind that quickly dries everyone. As the group joyfully twirls in the magical breeze, they are dry in a jiffy. The villagers marvel at the convenience of magic. When Ula's mother mentions she's hungry, Agredios offers to lead them to the dining hall. He warns their supplies are low, but suggests maybe Ula's mother can teach him to cook. The children point out in amazement that the witch's hair is like a sheep's. Ganomsesha is left speechless, realizing the witch's clothes grew back. Later, Ganomsesha finds a quiet moment with Agredios and asks him to tell her what happened. She asks him to confirm her fears that the others are gone. He embraces her. He commends her for handling the pain so well. He confesses that he did not handle it well at first. He was consumed by fury and ran into the forbidden woods after the attack. Agredios explains that word from the caravan has reached the capital, stating the Margrave's daughter went home with no escort. Ganomsesha realizes this means the capital knows what happened here. She understands the grim implication, they can't expect any help. This, Agredios reveals, is why he asked if she could bake, they are on their own to feed the survivors. Agredios leaves to check their food stores. She puzzles over his earlier actions, wondering why he ran into the forbidden woods. In the dining hall, Ula complains about the meager meal. Her mother, Grimelda, tells her whining won't help. The meal is just bean soup, as beans and wheat are all they have left. Agredios realizes the situation could get bad. His inspection of the larder confirms their desperate situation, their food supplies are almost completely gone. The sparsely populated dining hall is a stark reminder of their losses, and Agredios worries about how long their scant supplies will last. He contemplates a desperate trip to the capital to beg for grain. His thoughts are interrupted when he sees the witch, Ganomsesha, flinch. He gently demonstrates how to use a spoon. She tries to copy him but comically chomps on the spoon instead. The witch's spoon instantly regenerates into a branching, tree-like object. Agredios is astonished, admitting he didn't see that coming. Ganomsesha, however, seems to have been waiting for such an event, spinning in her chair to confront him. Agredios demands Ganomsesha get her hand off her sword. She retorts that the woman is the dangerous witch of the woods, a threat to the children. Agredios counters by pointing out how relaxed the children are, calmly teaching the witch how to hold a spoon. He explains that while she may be a witch, they owe her their lives. Grimelda chimes in, confessing she misinterpreted her father's letter and that the witch is innocent. Overwhelmed, Agredios despairs that at the end of the day, his efforts have only resulted in him becoming a kidnapper. Ganomsesha stares, processing the revelation. The witch suddenly murmurs about a curse. She leans over the table, her actions causing a stir among the children. The witch casts a spell on a bowl of soup, causing it to sizzle. The spell releases a powerful stench that alarms Agredios and Ganomsesha. She explains that it is a charm, a curse meant to give their bodies strength. Holding out a spoonful, she commands it to take root. The witch, Ganomsesha, trembles with a mix of fear and determination as she offers a spoonful of soup. Agredios understands that Ganomsesha wishes to go back to the woods, but he is resolved not to let her leave. In his mind, she remains a dangerous killer and a kidnapper. Despite his suspicions, he acknowledges that she is trying hard to be brave, even though she is shaking. Grimelda decides that to match Ganomsesha's courage and prove her wrong, she will try the soup. Agredios, determined, says he will try it instead. He takes the spoon from Ganomsesha, ready to taste the mysterious concoction. The taste is revolting. Agredios finds his mouth full of slime and complains that it smells like something died in his nose. He struggles to chew the strange, web-like beans that feel as if they are trying to escape his mouth. Meanwhile, the young twins, Percy and Perla, decide to try the soup for themselves. Alarmed, Grimelda gets to her feet. Percy calmly chews the unusual food. Gria frantically tells her to spit it out now. To everyone's surprise, Percy proclaims that it's the most flavorful beans she has ever tasted. Her unexpected verdict leaves Grimelda and Ula speechless. Percy happily declares that while it stinks, the soup is delicious. Ula and Nevi, however, have a much more negative reaction to the taste. Watching this, Agredios wonders if eating this meal will grant them protection. He asks Ganomsesha if the soup will save them from the curse of the woods. Ganomsesha simply replies, no, why? She elaborates that curses enter the body and mingle with what's inside. Sometimes, she adds, they cause things to change. She then spits out a mouthful of water, proclaiming that the curse purifies it, horrifying her audience. Agredios quickly covers Griomelda's mouth, warning her not to eat it. Ula nervously tugs at her hair, asking if the curse they keep mentioning is scary. She then asks if the curse is the reason all the settlers are gone. Agredios confirms that their people are gone because of the wood's curse, and he will tell them what he knows. Ula is horrified to realize there were only 3 survivors. She wonders why the capital won't send help, not knowing children are involved. Wap grimly notes that their food might not last until they could even reach them. Agredios thanks Ganom Sesha for purifying the cursed bodies, but laments that he cannot offer them much in return. He then asks why the 3 of them were traveling alone. Wap explains that they came from Achenes, but a herd of giant Toroths stormed their village, forcing them to run. Wap explains that a fortress bee appeared, and his father sacrificed himself to allow the others to run. Ula panics, fearing the creature is still out there and might come back to finish them off. Agredios reassures her that unless the creature can function without a head, they are safe. Wap is shocked to learn that Agredios and Ganom Sesha managed to behead a fortress bee by themselves. Apologizing for the lack of formality, Agredios introduces himself as the eldest son of Margrave Oromel Lion and his sister, Griomelda. Wap, flustered, apologizes to the Lord, explaining his daughter doesn't know how to speak to nobles. Agredios tells him to stop, assuring him it's fine as he's used to being around rough settlers. He asks to be treated like one of them and requests that they introduce themselves as well. Perla and Percy happily give their names, followed by a hesitant Ganom Sesha. The others introduce themselves as Wap, a beekeeper Nivi, and an enthusiastic Ula. Agredios suggests offering the refugees land in hopes they might stay, asking for their help. Ula correctly guesses that there's no other food available besides beans. She proposes an idea: they could raid the dead Fortress Bay, which she claims is usually loaded with good honey. Her father is shocked at the suggestion, but Ula is thrilled at the prospect of scavenging the beast. The exertion suddenly catches up to Ula and she collapses. Her father, Wap, reassures the others that she will be fine. He explains that since she's a fast runner, she was scouting ahead for them, but running for half a day has completely exhausted her. Agredios agrees that she has earned her rest, noting it isn't safe outside with the other beasts around. He invites them all to stay in the manor, offering them the guest rooms for the night. Wap laughs, relieved, and graciously accepts the offer, thanking Agredios for saving them. Nivi mentions that Ula's younger brother is in the capital, and they should inform him of their safety. Agredios leads the group through the village, showing them the way. Alone in a room, Agredios asks Griomelda how their father managed to fit a 3-page letter onto a single sheet of paper. Agredios guesses the contents: repeated warnings not to rush into marriage, a note that he'd be useless there without her, and a final insistence that she doesn't have to marry. Griomelda's expression confirms he is exactly right. Griomelda tells her brother that the capital believes their land is plagued, along with all its people, including their family. She confesses that she couldn't bring herself to tell Nivi that now that they are here, neither they nor the refugees can enter the capital. Agredios concedes that as cruel as the crown's judgment is, he cannot call it unwise. Gria clenches her fist, regretting that she had been too hasty and didn't stay in the capital to secure support for rebuilding. Agredios slams his fist on the table, angrily asking if she even read their father's letter. He states that he has a duty as the new lord of these lands and that it's what their father's will demands. He vows to make Main Street lively again and ensure everyone they lost is properly mourned, asking for her help. Griomelda grips his arm in solidarity and says, "Welcome home, Gria." Agredios shares his fear that the capital will refuse the refugees from Achenes, leaving them unable to feed everyone if they end up there. He decides that after they get food from the Fortress B, he will head to Achenes. Gria adds that while the town may still be standing, if the capital won't help, offering shelter is the least they can do. They are stuck waiting on word from the capital, which they know could take a very long time. Gria wonders when they will have time for their parents' funeral. Their discussion is cut short by the sound of crying from another room. Percy and Perla are crying uncontrollably. They cry out for their mommy and daddy, asking where they are. Griomelda rushes to their side and pulls them into a comforting hug. She holds them close, letting them cry. She gently comforts the sobbing children until their cries turn to sniffles. Exhausted from crying, the 2 girls finally slump against her. Agredios tells her to hang up the soiled linens, and Gria says she will fetch some old ones. Ganom Sesha peeks around the doorframe, startled by the commotion. Agredios tells Griomelda to get the girls fresh clothes and sheets. He observes that Griomelda is no longer wary of Ganom Sesha, recalling how easily she lifted the children, who must weigh 90 pounds together. Ganom Sesha explains that the children were crying because it got cold. Agredios understands that sorrow and doubt had welled up inside them, but thinks letting it out will be good for them. He explains that they woke themselves up by wetting the bed and realized their parents were not coming back. He tells Ganom Sesha that after they've cried, they'll know their parents are gone. But he continues, they will also realize that they have people who are there for them, and that includes her. Griomelda listens to their conversation from the hallway. Griomelda decides to sleep with the girls for the night. As she sits on the bed, she sees Ganom Sesha cleaning her side. Before Gria can fully process it, Ganom Sesha pulls her down to lie in the bed with them. Agredios, who had been watching from the doorway, quietly leaves them be. Ganom Sesha lies peacefully in bed, surrounded by the sleeping Griomelda, Percy and Perla. Walking away, Agredios concludes that he is not suited to be a lord, but would rather be a knight who protects his people's peace. Agredios gets everyone's attention, announcing their plan to salvage what they can from the Fortress B. He entrusts the details of the task to Wap and his family. Wap and Nivi begin discussing the tools they will need for the job, from axes and saws to specialized clothing for handling the carcass. Nivi points out that they will need hives for the new bees. Wap asks Agredios to borrow some land for the hive boxes, and Agredios readily agrees. Wap considers who will be able to help with the task. The twins, Percy and Perla, eagerly volunteer to help. Wap asks Nivi if she and Ula can handle opening the carcass, and they agree to try. As the others prepare, Ganom Sesha unexpectedly takes Griomelda's hand. Surprised and flustered, Griomelda wonders if the gesture means Ganom Sesha likes her. Agredios glances over, noticing the quiet interaction as Wap's family heads out with their cart. Ula and her family depart, waving goodbye as they head for the Fortress B. On the way, Agredios asks Ula if she's ever opened up a Fortress B before. She admits they've never even seen a whole carcass, but know about them from a book her grandfather left. Ula explains that her family has been beekeepers forever, even growing flowers for pesticides and bug repellents. She asks how Agredios and Griomelda managed to beat something so dangerous. Agredios points ahead, saying it would be faster to show her as they arrive at their destination. The group stands in awe before the massive carcass as Agredios explains how he defeated it. He warns them that the inside of its mouth is the truly scary part. When Ula asks if he was bitten, he shows her the custom gauntlet that protected him. Wap, in protective gear, prepares to crack the carcass open, advising everyone to stay back. Inside the carcass, Nivi confirms that the dangerous female attack drones are gone, and Ula prepares to spray the remaining bees to keep them docile. Agredios marvels at the enormous honeycomb structure inside the creature's torso. Nivi struggles to lift a heavy, honey-filled section of the comb. As honey begins to drip, Ula urges them to hurry and start bottling it. Agredios notices some bees beginning to swarm and questions why. Agredios turns in horror to see Ula's face covered in bees and screams for Nivi. Nivi, however, is unfazed, dismissing it as just Ula's thing and promising to scold her later. Ula cheerfully explains that she's fine. She had heard that the scent from the bees' rears attracts them and simply had to try it out. Griomelda asks if the honeybees can still sting, but Nivi reassures her that they are docile and calmed by their spray. Brushing off the incident, Ula offers everyone a taste of the fresh honey. Agredios, Gria, and Ganom Sesha all try the honey. Agredios is delighted by the delicious taste, thinking the twins will love it. Ula cries out in pain as her face swells up from the bee stings. Agredios asks if the stings hurt, while Ganom Sesha remarks that they do. Ganom Sesha blows on Ula's face using her magic. Ula touches her face in disbelief as the swelling instantly vanishes. Overjoyed, she realizes Ganom Sesha healed her and thanks the witch profusely. Ula presents a honeycomb full of larvae, declaring it another source of food to bring back. Agredios is shocked, asking if they actually eat the larvae. Ula enthusiastically confirms they are great when cooked, much to her sister's chagrin. Nivi offers to throw the larvae out, but Agredios decides they should at least take them back to the village. The group is welcomed back to the village. Ula immediately begins teaching the twins how to prepare the larvae for cooking. The girls learn quickly, snipping and cleaning the bugs with surprising speed. Agredios is impressed by how fast they work. He quietly asks Greer if this is a beggars can't be choosers situation, but she simply says more food is a good thing and offers him her share. The twins proudly show Agredios their work, and he thanks them. Ganom Sesher observes that he said thank you to her as well, and asks Griemelda what the words mean. Greer explains that they are special words, and that one will end up lonely if they cannot say them. Nivi explains to her father that Ula thanked Ganom Sesher for healing her. Agredios tells the twins that thank you is said when someone makes you happy or takes away sadness. He then turns to Ganom Sesher, takes her hands, and says he needs to thank her properly himself. Agredios sincerely tells Ganom Sesher that she brought peace to his parents and the village, and that he cannot thank her enough, which makes her smile. That evening, the Aeen's family announces that dinner is ready. They present a feast made from their harvest, baby bee soup, fried bees, and rolls baked with grubs and honey. They nervously tell Agredios and Greer not to feel obligated to eat it, as they've never served such dishes to nobles. Agredios reassures them, saying if it's good enough for Ula, it is good enough for them. He humbly states that without their knowledge, there would be no feast at all, admitting he is a noble in name only. Agredios and Griemelda give thanks for the food. The Aeen's family says a prayer before the meal. Agredios observes their piety, noting that the church must be thriving in their hometown. He mentally prepares himself to eat bugs for the first time, determined not to back down. The twins are the first to dig in. Agredios watches as they eat with gusto, their faces lighting up with delight. The children and Ganom Sesher declare the food tasty, comparing it to shrimp. The comparison to shrimp piques Agredios' curiosity. Wap explains they rarely get seafood like shrimp or crab, so the taste is new to them. Agredios considers that inlanders are often skeptical of eating shrimp, while the twins have no such prejudice. Resolving to try it, Agredios tells himself it's just shrimp and takes a bite. Agredios finds the food surprisingly good, remarking that it tastes sweet and sour just like shrimp. Greer agrees, adding that the honey provides a lovely sweetness, and Agredios wishes they had brought back more. Ula enthusiastically supports getting more larvae tomorrow, before being chided for her manners. The meal is a lively affair, with everyone enjoying the new food and company. After the successful dinner, Wap's family thanks Ganom Sesher. The next morning, Agredios and Ula prepare to ride to Aeen's. Ula's parents wish them well on their journey. Ula is impressed by the speed of Agredios' horse, as he tells her they'll arrive in half a day. As they near their destination, Ula excitedly points towards a hill, saying they can almost see Aeen's. Agredios spots smoke rising in the distance. He decides they need to get a better look from higher ground. From the hilltop, a devastating scene unfolds before them. They stare in shock and horror at what has become of Aeen's. Ula stumbles forward in disbelief, denying that the burning ruin below is her home. She lets out a scream of despair as Agredios realizes the fire was no accident. Ula is devastated by the loss of her grandfather's book in the fire that consumed her village. A villager anxiously asks Agredios about the fate of the people in the burning town. Agredios reports that he didn't get close, but it didn't appear as though anyone was there. The villager expresses relief, thanking the Lord for small mercies. He comforts a distraught Ula, reminding her that even though Aeen's may have burned, they are still alive. Ula hopes that the capital will provide shelter for all the others. Agredios agrees and tells the man to make sure Ula gets plenty of rest. Alone, Agredios slams his fist down, furious at the realization that Aeen's was burned to the ground by human hands. Agredios tells Greer that he saw the flag of the church flying over the scene, wondering how to break the news to Wap. Greer observes that at least they are safe from the worst. Wap's wife notes that if the Aeenesians are in the church's care, they won't have to feed them all. Agredios agrees, but points out they can no longer count on food from Aeen's and asks how much is left in their village. Greer proudly presents a tray of freshly baked cookies, announcing they have enough to feed 8 people for half a year. Percy enthusiastically praises the cookies, telling Greer he loves her. Percy sadly realizes his love is unrequited. Greer tells Agredios that she spent the day with Ganom Sesher, noting she is just like a child. Agredios glares, demanding to know what Greer did to her in the forest. Greer admits that none of her attacks left a scar, but she stabbed, burned, and even strangled Ganom Sesher. Agredios confesses that he, too, abducted her simply because he was suspicious. Greer admits that she is in no position to judge, as she had also called Ganom Sesher a witch. She explains to Agredios that every expression Ganom Sesher makes is merely an imitation. Agredios realizes that he also sensed something was off. Grier hands him a box and he asks what is inside. Grier tells Agredios he has some atoning to do and must make Ganom Sesha smile for real. She tells him to give Ganom Sesha the shoes, which belonged to her mother. Grier explains she made cookies from her own rations and prepared tea with honey. She tells Agredios she will send Ganom Sesha to the garden for him to talk to, but he panics, asking for advice on how to speak with her. Grier instructs him to speak slowly, wait for replies, make no sudden moves, and avoid scary faces. Agredios nervously agrees to do his best, and Grier assures him he will be fine. He cautiously approaches Ganom Sesha, who is sitting alone in the garden. His footsteps startle her and she looks up in alarm. Agredios offers Ganom Sesha the cookies Grier made and pours her some chamomile tea. She cautiously sniffs the tea. After taking a sip, she remarks that it contains a mild curse to purify the flesh. Remembering to keep a smile, Agredios asks if they can talk about the curse of the Forbidden Woods and why it obliterated the settlers. She explains that a warp was born, one strong enough to twist humans. Ganom Sesha elaborates that the woods make the life and death cycle too quick as the growing warp is carried away by the wind. Agredios finds her explanation too abstract and unhelpful. He notes that she needs to get used to conversations and asks if this wind blows often. She confirms that it does and says that she saw the smoke he did. She recounts walking barefoot through the gnarled roots of the forest. She continued climbing through the treacherous terrain. She explains that it was only when the wind blew that she was able to see the smoke. She recounts how she stayed there for a long time, watching and wondering what had happened, while Agredios listens, clenching his fist. The realization of what he has done hits Agredios with full force. He chokes on a cookie, berating himself for getting carried away by the idea of the witch while she was so alone. Ganom Sesha begins to choke in imitation of him. Forcing a smile, Agredios offers her tea, telling her to keep her throat clear or she will die. The word die sends a shudder through her. She leans forward anxiously, asking if everyone will die if the wind blows again. As she lists the names of their friends, Agredios vows that it will not happen on his watch. He realizes she saved his life and promises there will not be a next time. Agredios explains that people connect in many ways, through their lives and words, like how Perla and Percy's parents taught them to fish. He asks Ganom Sesha to share her gift with them. Apologizing for his forwardness, he gently puts the shoes on her feet as she flinches slightly. Agredios kneels before Ganom Sesha and formally asks her to please walk together with them. Agredios explains that they are the only ones who know the curse will return, and she is the only one who can show them how to face it. She introduces herself as Ganom Sesha, claiming it is the name he gave her. Agredios is jolted with surprise, asking when he could have possibly given her that name. Agredios struggles to recall, thinking he never said her name until she met the twins. With tears in her eyes, she insists that he shouted it in the woods. He tries to remember when he would have shouted a name in the woods, realizing it was when he attacked her. The memory hits him. He had screamed that she was going to get slaughtered. He is horrified to realize that was why she took the name. Agredios frantically tries to explain that it was not what he meant. As she screams in distress, he apologizes. He laments that he owes her everything, yet he named her with a threat, calling it a nightmare. She tells him to take back half of it. Confused, Agredios asks how he can take back half. She explains that the voices that call out to her become a part of her. She clarifies that it is people and their voices that make her who she is. She concludes that the people she has met made her who she is, turning her into Sesha. Overwhelmed, Ganom Sesha screams that she hates him. Agredios bows his head and offers a sincere, heartfelt apology. She declares that if everyone goes away, she will no longer be Sesha. Her anger subsides, and she decides that she wants to be Sesha, so she will stay. Relieved, Agredios thanks her for deciding to stay. She places a cookie in his outstretched hand. She thanks him for the cookie, and he notes that while her expression is genuine, it is not one he is proud of making her have. Agredios tells her that he knows everyone will be glad to be introduced to her again. He formally welcomes Sesha to their band of pioneers. She responds with a small, genuine giggle. Sesha muses that a new tomorrow will come again. Agredios watches her, hoping her smile is finally real and not just an imitation of his own. He suggests they get some sleep and offers to show her to her bed, which is in Grier's room. The village of Achains burns fiercely. A commander orders his knights to burn everything and everyone that is left. A subordinate reports that the Toroths are still trailing the Achanesian refugees, and the commander allows it, intending to drive them to Oromal Lion's settlement. The commander declares that the next settlement will burn, along with the refugees who are fleeing there. Gria awakens to find her bed crowded with Sesha and the children. She sits up, slightly exasperated, wondering why all three of them had to end up in her bed. She grabs her sword, ready to face the source of the noise. A commotion outside rouses Gria, who wonders what is going on. Her eyes widen as she focuses on the sound. She quickly heads towards the door to investigate. Agredios offers a cup of hot water, telling the person to drink it slowly. The room is filled with hooded figures, refugees seeking warmth and shelter. Agredios learns that the church torched Achenes, and all its refugees have arrived here. A villager named Wap rushes to report to Agredios. Wap explains that he asked the refugees how they ended up here. They told him they couldn't get near the capital because they were driven off by archers. Agredios is shocked, realizing the implication since the church forbids its soldiers from using bows. A posted sign confirms soldiers have blocked the roads, warning that anyone passing will be shot. Agredios concludes the archers must have been royal regulars. Wap despairs that they are being left to die as they don't have enough food. A sudden idea strikes Agredios. He turns to Wap and asks him to confirm that the Toroth attacked the cattle barn first. Agredios addresses the people of Achenes, introducing himself as the lord of the land. He explains that fear has led both the church and the crown to forsake them all. To make matters worse, he announces that their village has little food left and they have no other choice. Agredios clenches his fist, declaring that to survive they must hunt a Toroth. He asks the villagers to help gather watercress from the riverbank to feed to the cows. Agredios explains his plan to use cow urine as bait and that watercress will make the cows produce plenty. He assigns Wap's family to gather the plants while he prepares housing and food. He then turns to Gria and asks her to prepare rice rations. Gria questions their chances, pointing out that Toroths are bigger than houses. Agredios looks at his sister and tells her their chance of success is none. The bleak answer devastates Gria, who clutches her sword and wonders if she is about to lose her brother too. Seeing her distress, Agredios pats her head. He pulls her into a comforting hug. Agredios apologizes, acknowledging that they have only just lost their father and mother. Gria quietly tells him that she understands the facts. Agredios declares that they are the only ones who can fight, and so he is going to fight. The siblings walk off together, ready to face the impossible. From a distance, Sesha watches them leave. The next day, the plan is put into action. Agredios directs the villagers to spread cow urine and manure over hot stones so the wind will carry the scent, drawing the Toroth out. Children are posted as lookouts, taking shifts to watch for startled birds taking flight. Ula asks what they will do when the Toroth arrives, and Agredios explains that he or Gria will leap from a building and stab it in the spine. He admits that while he knows the plan sounds crazy, they lack the manpower to dig pit traps. He tells Ula he is open to any ideas and asks her to see if anyone has other plans. 2 days pass with no sign of the beast. 2 bells ring, signaling to Agredios that the birds are on the move. He knows everyone is working to their limits, but they can't even provide them with decent food. Suddenly, the bells begin to ring frantically. Agredios recognizes that 5 bells means a Toroth has been spotted, but wonders why the ringing is continuous. Percy shouts for Master Agredios, trying to get his attention. She points with a look of terror, screaming that it's Ula. The roof under Agredios' feet begins to shake and rumble. A massive Toroth bursts into view, chasing a terrified Ula down the street. She screams at everyone that they aren't safe even inside their homes. Agredios realizes with horror that Ula went out on her own to act as a decoy. He feels responsible, as he was the one who instructed her to have the beast run down this street. Declaring it his fault, he leaps from the rooftop to intervene. He lands directly in the path of the charging Toroth, using a rope and spear to intercept the beast. The Toroth thunders down the street. With incredible agility, Agredios uses his rope to swing onto the Toroth's back. He prepares to strike, determined to take down the beast. He aims for the spine. With a powerful downward thrust, he drives his spear into the Toroth's back. The Toroth roars in pain. Agredios realizes he can't finish it off with just the spear. He knows he has to hammer the spear in deeper to end the fight. The beast's violent thrashing sends Ula skidding across the pavement. The Toroth turns and charges towards the fallen Ula. Agredios loses his grip on his hammer. He lunges forward, determined that if he cannot protect even one person, he grabs Ula to shield her. Declaring that he doesn't deserve to call himself their lord, Agredios shields Ula with his own body. The Toroth's horn impales his side, and he cries out in agony. The force of the blow heaves him and Ula into the air. The impact sends them hurtling through the wall of a nearby building. They land in a heap of rubble. Wounded but resolute, Agredios glares, refusing to let go. He tells the crying Ula she did well and urges her to run out the back way. He admits he lost his hammer and rope, but vows to manage and stomp the spear in. He struggles to his feet, grabbing a piece of debris. As he struggles to his feet, he faces the stampeding Toroth, questioning how he can possibly climb onto the rampaging creature. Dragged helplessly by the enraged Toroth, Agredios struggles to find a way back onto the creature's back, unable to aim his thread. He knows with chilling certainty that a single stomp from its massive hooves would mean instant death. Gria watches the chaos, panting but ready to intervene. Agredios realizes with horror that the Toroth is charging straight for their mana. A nearby pile of manure gives him a desperate, last-ditch idea. Agredios screams at Gria to look down and shove her flaming sword into the manure pile. Though confused by the strange command, Gria prepares to follow his order. She plunges her hot blade into the muck, which instantly begins to sizzle and steam. A foul-smelling cloud of steam erupts from the manure. Startled, the Toroth rears back, exposing its vulnerable underside. Gria seizes the opportunity and dashes forward, aiming for its ribs. With a determined cry, Gria lunges and runs the massive beast through. The dying Toroth thrashes violently, sending Agredios flying. Gria is knocked hard to the ground. Ula grabs a mallet, desperately trying to hammer the spear deeper into the beast's back. Scrambling to his feet, Agredios grabs a shovel and swings with all his might, shouting that it just needs one more hit. He looks on in confusion after the blow lands. With a final shudder, the Toroth collapses. It lands directly on top of Agredios, who groans in pain. Gria rushes toward him, shouting for help to get the beast off her brother. With shouts of encouragement, the villagers all grab hold and pull together, straining to lift the immense carcass and free Agredios. The villagers crowd around him, anxiously asking if their lord is hurt. Exhausted, Agredios kneels and asks them to simply call him Ag. Ula rushes to Agredios, crying out his name. She hugs him tightly, sobbing her thanks. A little taken aback by the emotional display, Ag helps her to her feet. Agredios raises his fist and declares triumphantly that they are all still alive. The villagers, including Ula, look at him with confusion. He turns to them and urges them all to smile. Slapping the Toroth's hide, Ag announces that steak is on the menu for tonight. The villagers are stunned at first, murmuring about steak. Their disbelief quickly turns into joyous cheers at the thought of finally having meat to eat. The villagers celebrate their hard-won victory. Ag asks if anyone from Achene's knows how to butcher such a large animal, and several people step forward to volunteer. He sends Percy to the butcher shop, while others get logs to move the beast. Ag continues giving orders, reminding them to drain the blood before rigor mortis sets in and assigning patrol duty. The villagers get to work, preparing to move the massive carcass. One of the men asks Ag for instructions on processing the carcass. Gria gently corrects Sesha for using the wrong name. Ag turns to Sesha and reassures her that the smoke she saw earlier was simply from the villagers cooking. Sesha smiles, relieved. Ag asks Sesha if she can use her roots to help lift the heavy carcass, explaining it would feed many hungry people. Sesha seems hesitant, asking if everyone truly likes this food. Ag reassures her with a smile that they do, promising it will be delicious. Her roots begin to stir, wrapping around the Toroth. Sesha's roots effortlessly lift the massive beast. The villagers erupt in cheers, excitedly planning how to process the meat and what to do with the enormous guts. The children happily discuss gathering herbs for the meal. Ag is content, seeing that everyone is smiling and they can finally have a real meal. He examines the wound from Gria's sword, noting that the heart seems to have been burnt to a crisp. Curious, he scrapes off some of the char and tastes it. Gria suggests that Ula, being young and healthy, should try a piece. Ag gives a piece to Ula. She chews with difficulty, commenting that it tastes like blood, burnt rice, and leaves. She complains that she can't bite through it, and it's wearing out her jaw. Ag realizes with dismay that not even a young, healthy person can chew the meat. The villagers suggest mincing the meat so that everyone, including kids and the elderly, can eat it. However, the men trying to butcher it find that their knives can't get through the fat and it would take 2 days just to butcher the thing. The villagers despair, realizing the meat will rot before they can finish processing and preserving it. An old woman suggests making a brine or marinade to pickle the meat, saying they have plenty of salt and can get the necessary herbs. Ag wonders if curing the meat would also solve the toughness problem. Sesha watches the bustling activity, wondering what everyone is doing. Ula explains they're trying to figure out how to make the meat last a long time. Ula spits out the meat, complaining it's too hard to chew and they need to make it softer. Sesha takes the chewed piece from Ula, who protests that it's been in her mouth. She then covers the entire carcass in a strange, foamy substance from her mouth. Ag watches in horror, remembering the last time she did this to their beans, only Percy could stomach them. The villagers recoil in disgust from the substance covering the Toroth. Ag touches the fluff on the surface, realizing with horror that it's mold. He asks Sesha if she did this to help them eat it, recalling that mold is used to make cheese. Sesha simply nods. Ag acknowledges that it looks like plain old mold, but that Sesha did this for them. Stealing his resolve, he declares his trust in her and takes a bite. To his amazement, the meat is now tender and delicious. Agredios recoils in disgust after trying a piece of meat, complaining that it tastes like leather boots. A woman rushes over in concern as Agredios lets out a burp. Sesha states that they cannot eat the meat, as Ag coughs violently. He recalls that Sesha, who is barely used to eating, had just chewed and swallowed the meat raw. Sesha clarifies that they shouldn't eat the mold, but what's underneath. Agredios discovers that his knife cuts easily through the meat below the mold. He marvels that the meat is so dried out it can be sliced like paper. He asks if this means the meat under the mold is edible and will keep. Sesha explains that her curse makes other curses, like decay, work more slowly. Agredios is overjoyed, realizing this is exactly what they needed. The villagers are pleased with the discovery and decide to burn the inedible parts, asking Agredios to cut up enough for dinner. Suddenly, Greer is spotted riding towards them. Greer asks if Ag is hurt, and he admits he got kicked on purpose and now his back is killing him. He dismisses his pain, turning his attention to Greer. Agredios scolds Greer for getting dangerously close during the fight, questioning if she wanted to die. Greer calmly removes her helmet, explaining she figured she would be fine. She adds that she knew her big brother had her back, so she felt no need to waver. Agredios grumbles about what could have happened if he had slipped and fallen. Greer simply tells him to get his sword clanged because they'll need it in the kitchen. In the bustling dining hall, Agredios announces that the steaks are ready. He checks that everyone has their portion and asks if anyone wants herbs. Once everyone is seated, he calls for them to join him in a prayer to the Lord. Sesha and Greer bow their heads for the prayer. The villagers say grace, thanking the Lord for the food they have been granted. After the prayer, they all begin to eat. The clinking of cutlery fills the hall as they enjoy their first taste of the long-awaited meal. The meal is a resounding success, and villagers quickly get up from the table for more. Agredios stands and calls out, asking if anyone wants seconds and announcing that Greer can cook for them. The dining hall fills with cheers and joyous exclamations as the villagers marvel at how delicious the food is. Agredios watches, relieved that they can keep everyone fed for now. The villagers are encouraged to eat up and get some rest, to sleep off the fatigue of the last few days. Ag rallies the crowd, declaring that a new busy day awaits them tomorrow. The next day dawns. Agredios is busy at his desk, working on writs of residence and planning work assignments for the villagers. He worries about their lack of supplies and money, deciding to leave that problem to Greer. Hearing a noise, he asks who's there. Percy and Perla appear at his door, proudly announcing they've found a bunch of items for him. Agredios notes their preparedness, remarking that he's used up most of his own stock. Agredios invites Sesha to join him and the children. Out in a field of flowers, he reminds Percy and Perla of the rules: only take the dead ones. The children rush into the field to begin their search. Agredios then turns to Sesha, telling her to watch what happens when he sharks one of the items they're collecting. Agredios explains that he needs them to bring him a bunch of cocoons to shrink down. He mentions that the village kids gather them for him this time of year. He acknowledges that the younger children are too little to understand what to look for, so they often bring him beetles and other things instead. He continues, saying that whenever they find something, they bring it over. in their little hands. The realization that the children bring him these things simply to show him brings tears to Agredios's eyes. Overwhelmed with emotion, he pulls one of the children into a tight hug. He repeatedly apologizes as he holds the child. Perla comforts the distraught Agredios, telling him she understands how he feels and that she's sad too. She says that everyone is gone. Overcome with grief, Agredios breaks down and sobs. He chokes out that he knows it's not very lordly for him to cry like this. Percy rushes to join the embrace, and soon all three are crying together. Percy notes that Perla is crying now too. Perla tearfully asks why they are all crying, exclaiming that the tears are contagious. Sasha suddenly appears, swooping in and pulling the children away from Agredios. She sternly confronts him, believing he was bullying Percy and Perla. The children quickly rush to his defense, assuring Miss Sasha that Master Ag would never bully anyone. Agredios hangs his head, admitting with shame that he's afraid he has bullied Sasha. The children, still in tears, declare that they will help him apologize properly so he can say it like he means it. Realizing his failure to communicate caused this mess, Agredios humbly asks them to teach him the right way to apologize. The children instruct him, first, admit what he did wrong, then think of how the other person feels and apologize loudly and clearly. Agredios thanks the girls, acknowledging they are right. He bows deeply to Sasha, sincerely apologizing for causing her so much pain and fear. He promises to never make her feel that way again. Agredios continues, wanting to thank Sasha for the delicious food she made for them. Sasha explains that since she arrived, there is more of her. Agredios is confused by her statement, asking how there could be more of her. She clarifies that she wants even more. Sasha explains that there is the her who was scared and the her who ate tasty food, and she asks if she can have them. Agredios takes a moment to steady himself. He explains that those are called memories, and they are all hers. He claps his hand into hers, saying he'd be glad to help. Sasha recoils from his sudden gesture. Perla explains that a handshake might seem threatening or like he's forcing her. Agredios tells Sasha that their village has more people now, and he's sure he'll ask for her help with food again. Percy then gently takes Sasha's hand and asks if she can help her make more tasty memories with everyone. Sasha quietly contemplates the idea. With a small smile, Sasha agrees, saying she wants that. Agredios breathes a sigh of relief, feeling like he and Sasha have just had a real conversation for the first time ever. Just then, he's called from a distance. A villager waves and shouts that it's a message from Lady Greer, who is looking for him at the riverbed. Agredios waves back, telling her he'll be right there. As the villager walks off with the children, she hums, content that they have more living, breathing people now. Agredios reflects on his feelings of melancholy and sorrow, but decides now is not the time for that. As he walks toward the riverbed, he resolves that for now he'll just say he's sorry. In the bustling settlement, villagers are hard at work making soap and pickling food under Greer's supervision. Agredios calls for everyone's attention, announcing that before he distributes the writs of residence, Greer has an important announcement regarding their finances. Agredios whispers to Greer that he was unaware of this plan, but she simply tells him to go with it. Greer addresses the villagers, explaining that while the House of Oromelian will issue promissory notes for their work, they cannot be exchanged for cash until word arrives from the capital. Agredios and Greer apologize for this failure, asking for the villagers' continued cooperation for the sake of everyone's survival. After Greer invites questions, a carpenter raises her hand. The woman, Alpen, asks if there is any way to send coin to the capital. Agredios realizes she must have family she needs to support. Greer somberly replies that it is not possible, and Agredios understands their problems extend beyond simply acquiring goods. Alpen breaks down, crying that her son will be left on the streets. Sasha quietly asks Agredios if she should reveal the wood's curse, but he cautions against it, fearing more chaos. The crowd murmurs with deep-seated anxieties about disease and their new leaders, their distrust rooted in generations of history with the crown. Agredios reminds the crowd that the tragedy of a past plague that killed a quarter of the population is still fresh in their memories. A man from Aeen speaks up, recalling the capital's harsh response and warning everyone against acting rashly. Trying to shift the mood, another villager assures everyone they will figure out payment and calls for a girl named Perla. To rally the villagers, Agredios presents Perla as proof of their health and vitality. His speech lifts their spirits, and the crowd agrees to work hard together. A hopeful Alpen asks to begin building a new barn. Agredios enthusiastically agrees, promising to ready their writs of residence. The new settlers discuss their plans, with Wap feeling they have imposed enough already. Wap expresses his deep gratitude to Agredios and offers to help pacify the more fearful villagers. Agredios realizes Wap's leadership experience is why he took charge during the Fortress B attack and thanks him for his help. Agredios sets off to find the last unregistered resident. He discovers a boy sketching by a tree and is impressed by the quality of his art. Agredios approaches, noting that he is the last person to be registered and guessing from his attire that he is a noble. The boy excitedly introduces himself as Myalanso Fragian of a baronial house, insisting Agredios call him Mayan. He reminds Agredios that he was the one who pulled him out from under the Toroth. Mayan gushes that his actions were heroic and straight out of the old stories. Agredios is left flustered and awkward by the praise. Mayan, flustered, admits he was entranced by Agredios' musculature. Agredios asks how he got caught up in the situation and where his parents are. Mayan explains his parents are gone and he is now cared for by his uncle. Agredios apologizes for not recognizing his station sooner and invites him to the manor. Mayan explains he is self-sufficient from his time at art school but has little money. Agredios asks if Mayan makes a living as an artist. Mayan admits that in these trying times, all he has to offer is his art. He sincerely offers to help in any way he can. As Agredios ponders the offer, he is called away by the children. The children arrive with a great catch of fish, having also traded for eggs, vinegar, and oil. Agredios praises their work and offers Mayan a snack. He begins preparing a dish, mixing ingredients in a bowl. Agredios asks Perla if she wants the usual. He proceeds to apply a light electrical shock to her head, which Sesha seems to encourage. Agredios tries to explain it's not what it seems, as Perla tells Sesha she enjoys the tingling feeling. Mayan looks on, completely baffled by the scene. Agredios explains that he uses his electricity to kill parasites in the raw mackerel. Perla affectionately calls him Mackerel Ag, and he jokes that she's the only one who likes his trick. Mayan is shocked they eat raw fish. Agredios assures him the local seafood from the Oromalian Sea is safe to eat this way. Standing by the shore, Agredios tells Mayan that his family spent generations shaping the land. After preparing the fish with a dipping sauce, he announces that it is ready to eat. He offers a piece to Mayan, encouraging him to try it. Mayan hesitantly takes a bite. Sesha tries the fish, her expression unreadable as Mayan watches. Perla exclaims how mild and delicious the fish is, and Agredios observes that Sesha also seems to be enjoying it. As Percy encourages her, Sesha tries another piece, looking intrigued by the flavor. Agredios tries another local food and finds it hard and smelly. Percy eagerly asks Sesha to teach her how to make her stinky beans. Sesha's magical explanation involves blowing withered grass blight on them. Percy cleverly points out that while she can't reach high leaves, Sesha can, illustrating that they each have unique skills. Percy insists that since she can't use magic, Sesha should show her a different way to make the beans. Agredios is deeply impressed by Percy's thoughtful reasoning. Recalling how her saliva cursed the fish, Sesha admits she's unsure of her own abilities. Nevertheless, she agrees to try her method on the beans. The girls watch in anticipation as the beans are cursed. Perla blurts out that the beans look like poo, earning a gentle reprimand from Agredios. After tasting them, Percy has a strange, wide-eyed reaction. Agredios encourages a reluctant Mayan to eat with him on the count of 3. Mayan and Agredios are surprised to find the beans create a new, sweet and salty flavor that enhances the fish. Perla is overjoyed with the taste, grabbing Sesha in a hug and declaring her love for her and her cooking. Agredios jokingly calls Sesha a two-timer for winning Perla's affection. He turns to Mayan with a serious proposal, believing he has a job that only Mayan can do. He wants him to use his art to draw a guidebook. Mayan and Sesha are both curious about what kind of guide he means. Agredios explains that vital skills like their master piccolos are only passed down orally and could easily be lost. He believes their collective knowledge, including Sesha's recipes, are their most valuable assets. While finding food is their current priority, he stresses that preserving this know-how is crucial for rebuilding their future. The children chime in, mentioning that they and the Achinesians also have special skills to contribute. Agredios wants to document everything so everyone can learn from each other. He asks Mayan to combine all their know-how into a single volume using his art, and Mayan tearfully accepts. Mayan formally introduces himself to Sesha and the girls, who welcome him enthusiastically. Watching them, Agredios smiles to himself, confident that the charming boy will fit in perfectly. Agredios tells Mayan he must leave, but will return in the morning. As he departs, he reasons that the smoke he saw earlier wasn't from bandits. He concludes it must be the same churchmen who burned Achenes and resolves to confront them directly. Koenig resolves to strike by night, believing that even his meager forces can handle a tired Toroth. By doing so, he plans to earn the trust of the survivors. He reflects that this trust is essential to finish the mission. A scout rushes in with an urgent report for his sir. The scout reports that the pioneer settlement is somehow unharmed. This news is met with disbelief, as the Toroth was heading straight for them, and yet the pioneers are lighting cooking fires. Koenig recalls hearing that flame dancer Gria was among them. He wonders aloud if they managed to kill the massive beast. As he addresses his men, confirming they are from the Church of the Hand of Blessings, a shadowy figure appears. He introduces himself as Agredios of House Oromelian, son of the late Margrave and rightful lord of these lands. He declares that he seeks an audience. The announcement leaves Koenig stunned and furious. Koenig's men immediately draw their weapons, ready to kill the intruder. Agredios calmly asks if they wish to settle this with swords. He then throws a device that erupts into a thick cloud of smoke, obscuring their vision. Blinded by the smoke, Koenig orders his pikemen into formation, telling them to charge the spot where Agredios stood. He worries that if Agredios escapes, he will alert the Achinesians to their presence. His subordinate questions the man's identity, but Koenig insists it doesn't matter. As one of the soldiers charges blindly through the smoke, Agredios suddenly appears from the haze and strikes him down. The other soldiers are alerted to his new position. Agredios swiftly dispatches another soldier in the chaos. Standing amidst the smoke, Koenig demands to know what's going on. He curses Agredios, furious that he might get away. As the smoke begins to dissipate, Agredios is spotted on his knees, seemingly weakened. Koenig seizes the opportunity, ordering his swordsmen and shield-bearers to surround and crush him. Suddenly, a massive boulder hurtles out of the woods, crashing into the churchmen. Koenig whirls around, shocked by an attack from behind. In the confusion, Agredios grabs a nearby soldier, taking him hostage. With a blade to the soldier's neck, Agredios gives Koenig a choice: lay down their arms or fight on. Enraged by the defiance, Koenig bellows for silence. He prepares to strike. Koenig swings his massive blade through the smoke. A strange sound catches his attention, causing him to pause. A figure leaps from the smoke, wielding a hammer. He brings it down hard on one of the churchmen. The mysterious attacker brutally dispatches another soldier, his movements swift and merciless. Koenig watches, stunned, as his men fall, wondering what kind of creature he's facing. The attacker stands victorious over the fallen soldiers, leaving Koenig to question what they are up against. Realizing it's too late to fulfill his duty, Koenig's resolve hardens. He prepares for a final, desperate attack. Koenig decides that if nothing else, he will kill this new enemy. He charges forward. The attacker steels himself for the confrontation, determined to kill Koenig as well. The two combatants rush toward each other. As Koenig closes the distance, his opponent throws a spinning circular blade. In a display of incredible skill, the attacker catches the thrown weapon. Koenig freezes, his eyes wide with shock. He realizes the attacker has caught the ring from his own sword, disarming him. With Koenig's weapon neutralized, the attacker addresses the defeated churchmen, welcoming them on behalf of the pioneers. He then turns to the downed soldiers, telling them to heal themselves and leave. Koenig remarks that they do the church's dirty work and asks if the pioneers have a skilled healer. The attacker removes his hood, revealing himself to be the young artist Mayan, who replies that they don't. Mayan urges the churchmen to get their horses and leave quickly, warning that the sounds of their fight may have attracted something worse. Mayan leads the defeated churchmen toward the settlement. Koenig is astonished to see the Achinesians are truly safe. Mayan cheerfully adds that they are also well fed with Toroth steak. The realization dawns on Koenig that this boy defeated him. He grabs Mayan's shoulder, insisting he speak to them. Facing the villagers, Koenig introduces himself as an inquisitor and confesses that he and his men torched their village. A villager demands to know why the church forsook them. Koenig explains it was to prevent a plague, but admits there was no evidence they were infected. From the side, Agredios tells Greer that Koenig's confession is a half-lie, but one that could help them secure aid from the capital. Koenig bows deeply, apologizing for his actions and praying for the villagers' health. He then turns to his own men, telling them to fulfill their covenant. He announces that their mission has failed. He tells his men he is honestly glad they failed for the best possible reason. His men agree, relieved. He laments that they were forced to lift a stern hand against those the church deemed heretics. He prays for true mercy and salvation for the souls whose lives were forfeit by the stroke of a pen. Koenig says he is sorry. As one of his men begs him not to, Koenig begins coughing violently. Mayan and Greer watch in confusion. Koenig, choking, defiantly drinks from a vial. As his men fall around him, dying from poison, Koenig realizes his own vial contained only honey. One of the churchmen collapses, choking. Mayan screams in anguish, calling them idiots. He understands they have just committed mass suicide, and his attempt to save their leader was not enough. Koenig demands answers from Agredios, who asks in disbelief if Koenig really made his own men drink poison. Villagers rush to bring water and oil to help the dying men. Agredios realizes he underestimated his opponents, acknowledging they had a magic user but were still prepared to die. Taking a deep breath, Sesha prepares to use her magic. She unleashes her power upon the poisoned men. The men groan in pain as the magic takes effect. A grotesque, flower-like mass is expelled from one of the men. The churchmen recover, confused by what just happened. Having expended her energy, Sesha wobbles and collapses into Agredios' arms. He catches her, worriedly asking if she's okay. Agredios realizes she didn't just cure their poison. Upset, Sesha pinches Agredios' cheek, asking him to let her go. She calls him a liar. Through tears, she asks why he hurt the men, reminding him of his promise to stop the hurting and fear. As she cries that she hates him, Ula tries to clarify that Agredios meant no more harm for Sesha specifically. Agredios is filled with regret, realizing he can't just brush off the fact that he made such a kind person cry. Agredios explains that the men are hurt because they fought him. He tells a crying Sesha that the men poisoned themselves after they lost. He clarifies that they used violence to force their ways onto Ula and her family. He explains that fighting is a form of communication, and they tried to do to the villagers what others had done to Sesha. Agredios continues, stating the men used violence to control people until death seemed like the only escape. Trembling, Sesha asks if he will do the same to them again. He replies that they will pay the price of defeat. Sesha cries out that his intention is cruel. He then clarifies that he is going to make them apologize to Ula and her kin. Addressing the churchmen, Agredios declares that if they can still stand, they should, for they are now his prisoners and will obey him, not the church. He then turns to the people of Achenes, telling them he won't ask for forgiveness. He asks them to see that the men are trying to repent. He places the blame squarely on those who gave the orders, forcing these poor souls into their position. Agredios angrily states that those who gave the orders are the real problem. He points to the pikemen, noting how their limbs were broken, yet they now stand. He muses on Sesha's powerful magic that cured poison and injuries instantly before deciding to focus on organizing everyone. The villagers begin assigning tasks, integrating the former enemies into their work, such as gathering lumber. Others are tasked with helping load cows with bees for the flower garden, fostering cooperation. Watching them, Sesha thinks that none of them can truly make amends until they know who they are making them with. A villager reflects that while they lost no lives, they still lost a lot. Others chime in, mourning lost wedding dresses, bulls, and grandpa's book. Another laments that their fields are gone and the new seedlings are all burnt up. The Beastblood villagers admit they aren't sure if they hate Agredios for what happened. Agredios approaches the former churchmen, personally asking them to lend their strength, stating that they all need to survive. Koenig, their leader, listens intently. The churchmen look to their leader, Sir Koenig, for guidance. Koenig tells them that he is a prisoner just like them and asks what they want from him, leaving the choice to them, should he order them to be killed or to obey this new lord. He tells them that the choice is theirs. His gaze falls upon Sesha. Agredios suggests they extend an olive branch and start on dinner, provided Sesha doesn't mind him forcing the issue. Ula comforts the tearful Sesha, explaining that like curses, people can eat, destroy, coexist, and change. She continues that people have words and names for things, then embraces Sesha. Sesha hugs Ula, agreeing that there will be no more bullying. Agredios tells Sesha that she saved the men's lives, and he promises not to hurt them again. Ula looks on, touched by the moment. Gria then asks Agredios why he was holding her earlier. He sheepishly admits he was just trying to figure out how to say all that. The churchmen embrace, relieved to be alive. One of them, Napka, tearfully asks Koenig if they can talk. Agredios flicks one of the physicians on the forehead. He approaches the 3 physicians he had noticed earlier, asking what they do. Napka, one of the physicians, explains their profession. She asks what happened to them, looking at the strange mushroom on the ground. Sesha warns her not to touch it, explaining the mushroom drank her death curse, much like the one that destroyed the village. Agredios furiously demands to know what they drank. A dropped vial lies on the ground, its contents revealed to be arsenic. The physicians confirm they drank arsenic, wondering if it stops corpses from decaying. Napka mentions wax mummification for preserving bodies after death. She says she's never heard of a plague doing that to its victims. Napka reveals they have more arsenic in their satchels. Overcome with guilt, she cries, realizing she was meant to kill everyone, even the children. Koenig confesses their original plan, to kill the Toroth, earn the people's trust, then poison them before taking their own lives. Agredios asks Koenig why the poison didn't affect him. Koenig laughs, suggesting he might be blessed. As Napka grabs him, he shoves her away. She then reveals his true identity to the stunned group. Koenig is the king's illegitimate son. Agredios explodes with frustration, shouting that he has enough to deal with without church and nobility intrigue. Koenig retorts that Agredios is the one who brought him there. Agredios yells back that they are short on manpower and needed the security, so he took in the soldiers to put them to work. With the truth out, the others look on. Gria calms Agredios, reminding him to think. She points out that Koenig is their only link to the capital. Agredios realizes she is talking about leveraging the situation for money and goods. Gria suggests they determine the churchman's main goal, asking what would happen if the church discovered the villagers were safe. She asks Koenig what his orders prioritized, slaughtering the Achenesians or burning their fields. Koenig confirms the fields were the explicit priority. Gria finds this information curious. Gria analyzes that with the pioneers gone and their fields burned, the kingdom loses a major source of salt and grain, weakening the nobility. She notes that abandoned fields attract rats, a major fear since the last plague. Agredios acknowledges her great points, which make things clear. Annoyed by the political complexities, Agredios declares he hates it. He tells Gria to handle it. Agredios decides he'll go to the capital with Koenig when the time is right. He acknowledges that for now, they must address their supply problems. He gives the physicians a new job, fighting off the Forbidden Woods. This refers to the plague that wiped out the pioneers who were here before. He states that simply cutting these people off isn't the solution, they need their protection. Agredios tells the physicians that if they succeed, they will consider their lives saved, as the survivors need them. He tasks them with finding a way to stave off the plague, warning that if it returns, the capital will also be at risk. Napka wonders how they can possibly achieve this, admitting she can't begin to guess. Agredios reassures her that it doesn't need to be fixed immediately, as there's a more urgent issue. He lifts a child and declares that to keep the capital healthy, they must start with their pioneers, who need food, preservation methods, and medical knowledge. Agredios sends the physicians to gather tea leaves. Napka introduces herself and asks for forgiveness for speaking out of line. She tearfully thanks him for not killing them and for preventing them from having to kill anyone. As he walks away, Agredios tells Koenig that actions must speak for them both and that he shouldn't expect a free meal. Agredios announces that Gria, now called Perla, is their captain, as she is the only one with experience. Koenig introduces himself to Mayan, who is helping prepare the boat. Agredios explains that Mayan is getting hands-on experience for his book, and Koenig is tasked with steering the ship with his magic. With everything ready, they push the boat into the water. As they set sail on the vast sea their ancestors created, the group looks on in wonder. Agredios smiles, exclaiming that since their ancestors went to the trouble of making this sea, they might as well fish in it. Mayan trembles with effort, calling out to Master Agredios that he's hooked a big one. From the larger boat, Koenig instructs Mayan to lower his hips, while another villager suggests trying a net instead of just rods. Agredios remarks that a net should help them catch more fish. Suddenly, a massive tentacle appears, and both Koenig and Mayan are shocked by what they've caught. The group cries out in alarm as a giant squid attacks their boat. Agredios quickly draws his weapon and slashes at an approaching tentacle. Koenig warns that a tentacle is coming their way and shouts for them not to touch it. Agredios deflects the massive limb, sending a splash of water over the deck. Agredios manages to sever the tentacle, which retracts into the sea. A child rushes across the deck with a pot of oil, shouting that they need to make the boat slippery so the squid can't grab on. Agredios yells for Koenig to use his magic to fill the sail and tells him to hold onto Mayan. Koenig concentrates, unleashing his wind magic. The boat surges forward, leaving the turbulent waters behind. Mayan and another child celebrate their thrilling escape, with Mayan exclaiming he always wanted to try sailing with wind magic. Once safely on shore, Koenig expresses his relief, wondering who knew such monsters were down there. Leaning on the boat, Agredios catches his breath, remarking that it was a close call and he will not underestimate the sea again. Percy praises Mayan for the great job and suggests they give the other fish to the mom squad to make soup. Koenig reminds them that they first need to wipe the oil off the boat. Agredios agrees, telling the others to get the big catch back to town while they handle the fish and boat. Koenig scrubs the boat, admitting he was ready for a fight. Agredios tells him that while they didn't have much hope for winter, Koenig's magic gives them a shot. Koenig explains that since non-healing magic is taboo, he had to study it in secret to kill the church's enemies. Agredios dismisses the origin of the magic, excitedly planning their next squid hunt. Koenig's thoughts drift to the hope derived from magic. He recalls being ordered to kill heretics who only refused to surrender their beast-blood children. He reflects that while they defied the church, they were just parents, his thoughts interrupted by Perla complaining about her tools. Napka asks Koenig for help hanging the nets. She says it was nice of God to send them the fish, prompting Koenig to ask, "What God?" Napka joyfully shouts her prayer to the great, big whale baby god at the bottom of the sea. She explains to Koenig that this is how she prays, while he notes that the settlers have their own heretical gods. Koenig gently places a hand on her head, struck by her innocent faith, something he has cut down for blasphemy. He reflects that he had to be strong for those whose only hope is faith, but now questions if tolerance is truly weakness. Standing before the setting sun, Koenig and Napka give thanks for the bounty they received. The villagers enjoy the meal, exclaiming how good it is, and that they've never had anything so salty yet sweet. Gria grills pieces of squid over a fire. Agredios notes that while he wishes they could make such tasty food themselves, they are almost out of ingredients. Malf and Tuil discuss their plans to start tilling fields for soybeans, hoping for a good fall harvest. Another villager thanks Gria for the food, noting they need to plant something before the Toroth meat runs out. Agredios offers Koenig some of the grilled squid that Gria prepared. Koenig stares at the food, remarking that Agredios, a noble, doesn't flinch at monstrous meals. As a child begins to cry, Koenig apologizes and Agredios asks what's wrong. One woman weeps with joy, saying it has been years since she ate anything with flavor. Agredios tells Koenig to eat well and get his strength up, as there will be enough squid for everyone tomorrow, which brings a laugh from Koenig. The villagers remark that Agredios doesn't look down on them. They are grateful that he, a noble, accepts beast bloods and others, which has rekindled their hope. They confess they had halfway given up out of fear, but the people in Achenes were kind. Among the pioneers, the couple wonders if they might consider having a child. An older man reminisces that kids used to rush down the main street to see what he'd caught on his hunts. Agredios says that nothing would make him happier than for the town to be filled with the voices of children again. Malf and Tuil are moved by his words. Suddenly, a child pops up and declares that giant squid smells awful, ruining the moment for Agredios and Koenig. The comment makes Gria and the others burst into laughter. Agredios asks Sesha if something is wrong. Sesha points her staff towards the windows, sensing danger. With a puff of foul smoke from her mouth, Sesha screams at everyone to close the windows. A wave of miasma bursts through the open window, sending the villagers reeling. Agredios is startled by the sudden event. The villagers cry out in pain as the miasma fills the room, complaining of the salty, rust-like taste and the smell of pee. As her staff begins to crack under the strain, Agredios calls out to Sesha, pleading for this not to happen again. Holding her cracking staff, Sesha thinks in despair that they are all going to die. With a surge of power, Sesha unleashes her magic against the blight, determined not to let anyone die. The shutters rattle as the last of the foul wind passes. The villagers cough and recover from the ordeal. Outside, Sesha collapses, and Agredios realizes it wasn't a curse affecting people. He catches her, feeling a deep chill, as he understands the wind itself was the problem. Sesha looks down at the river, confirming that the water is tainted. Agredios asks for clarification, shocked that the water itself is the problem. He tells Gria to send everyone home, saying that he and Sesha will investigate. Kneeling by the river, Agredios asks if they can no longer drink the water, but Sesha reassures him that for now, the people will be okay. Sesha explains that the forest runoff drained away, making this curse weaker than the blood taint, but it is still dangerous. She warns that the taint will grow, and before long it will cause another death. Agredios realizes they urgently need to find a way to purify the river for both drinking and cleaning. He wonders who is calling his name, before realizing it was Sesha. Sesha tells Agredios that her everyone all died, and she knows his hurt. She explains that she went to the woods so she could die too. Agredios understands she felt the same grief as the long-eared ones. Sesha recalls the feeling of her fingers and toes going cold, like falling into a pit of darkness, when she thought they would all die. Agredios confesses that back when he gathered the bodies, he may have felt the same way. He admits the despair was more than he could bear. But then something shook him out of his despair. He tells Sesha that she saved his new everyone, Perla and Percy. He looks at her intently, explaining that is why she saved him body and soul. Agredios holds her staff and tells Sesha that just as she saved his life, she should please let him use her to save everyone else's. Moved by his words, Sesha agrees. Agredios admits he doesn't know where to start with the water problem. Sesha suggests stinky bains, which confuses Agredios. She clarifies that they will need lots and lots of them. The next day, Agredios announces to the people of Achenes that Gria will add their requests to her list and that they will manage financial support for any family in the capital. Agredios warns them to be patient, as the church has shown how much they fear the plague. The villagers worry that if they are suspected of contacting family, their relatives could be exiled. Gria states their goal is for the crown to find them healthy, and they must keep her safety a secret until then. She announces that she and Koenig will set off for the capital soon. Agredios lays out their priorities: soybeans, livestock, and fields. Napka interrupts, begging to be taken with them. Napka suggests the problem might be dysentery, and that she'd like to investigate the capital's water source. She also adds that she wants to tell the children at the orphanage that she is safe. Agredios allows her to check the water, but cannot approve a visit to the orphanage. Koenig notes that the church may not need him anymore. He points out that if he can't get the church's support, Agredios will need another way to get supplies out of the capital. Agredios realizes that if they can't secure support, they won't have nearly enough money. Mayan asks if she can come too, reminding them she is a noble and never told her school she was going to Achenes. Agredios questions if she is sure, but Mayan insists she just wants to be useful. The leader of the Beastbloods organizes his men, sending swordsmen with Malf and Tuil to find farmland and shield-bearers to protect the food-gatherers. A child announces they are picking spikenard, though she hates it because it's bitter. Koenig quietly asks Agredios if he has told the Achenesians that Koenig was planning on slaughtering them. Koenig accuses Agredios of plotting something, and Agredios laughs, admitting he can't deny it. Agredios tells Gria to remind Koenig's men not to do any more repenting unless she wants to join them. Agredios tells Gria and Napka to get packed, but Gria refuses to help with the hearings. A few days later, the group parts ways, with Agredios telling Ula to stay on their side of Achenes. Napka is instructed to get water from another river and give it to Sesha. Agredios tells Mayan and Napka to wait while Nika and Kled keep Ula safe. From a distance, they observe that the capital has stronger defenses than expected. Koenig asks for the plan, and Agredios tells him to walk up with his sword out to show he's an inquisitor. Agredios explains that they will take another way in and meet Koenig at the capital bank. Koenig questions the existence of another way in, stating that the area is surrounded by cliffs. He is interrupted by the sound of an alarm horn. As arrows are loosed, Agredios screams for Koenig to get down. Koenig looks up with a grim expression. A volley of arrows descends upon him. Koenig is lost in a memory of a young girl, Napka, offering him a flower crown. She reassures him that she's fine and just needs to be tough to see her parents again. He wonders where he is, realizing it's just a memory from long ago. As a volley of arrows flies towards them, Greer observes that the archers are aiming to kill. On the ground, Koenig is glad for the preparations they made. Koenig manages to deflect the arrows, but the impact sends him tumbling. Grier cries out his name in alarm. He coughs, remarking that his life flashed before his eyes. Grier checks on Koenig, who insists he only bit his tongue. She urges him to take cover in the trees and limp, to deceive the archers into thinking he's badly wounded. As she rushes ahead, Koenig notices a familiar thread. He asks about his sword, but Grier tells him to leave it and hurry. Watching from a distance, the archer commander believes they've hit Koenig's leg. He orders another salvo to finish off the king's bastard. The archers fire again, only to find their target has vanished into the woods. The commander's subordinate worries that the Inquisitor might be infected and warns against approaching him. The commander tells his corporal to prepare something. In the forest, Grier offers to drag Koenig to safety. He wryly asks if she's enjoying the situation. She vehemently denies enjoying it. Grier, dressed in a bear costume, reveals their plan to fake Koenig's death. She instructs him to scream loudly to convince the troops he's being mauled. A bewildered Koenig is dragged along as Grier curses the provincial noble responsible for the attack. The distant screams convince the commander that Koenig is being mauled by a bear. He orders a letter and Koenig's sword be taken to the capital. He tells his men to wait until the screaming stops while they continue preparations. Meanwhile, the bickering between Koenig and Grier is interrupted by Napka. Agredios tells them to be quiet and stay out of sight. Mayan suddenly shouts a warning for Lord Ag to look behind him. The archers are now firing flaming arrows. Agredios sees an opportunity, stating the smoke will cover their ascent up a cliff, but Koenig questions the plan. Agredios effortlessly scales the cliff face with his thread. He then throws a rope down to stunned Koenig, instructing him to tie it around his groin to be pulled up. Having escaped, the group rests for the night, unable to light a fire. Agredios explains they'll take a longer route to the capital. He heads off to scout, telling Koenig to use Ula's special bug repellent. Koenig watches him go, contemplating Agredios' impressive skills and realizing that with his thread, even walls are no obstacle. As they near the capital, Agredios checks on Koenig. Agredios and Mayan prepare to enter the capital. Koenig asks Agredios a question. He accuses Agredios of being an assassin. Agredios is taken aback by the accusation and tells him he's wrong, suggesting his sister's influence is just a cover. As Mayan helps style his hair, Agredios explains that his skills are necessary for his house's duty, taming the forbidden woods. He describes a land of giant plants and beasts where magic is useless. His house was given no choice but to tame the land. His ancestors had to carve out a safe place for their subjects. He states that relying on magic wouldn't work, but skills like his can succeed. Agredios elaborates that he hunts the beasts while Mayan catalogues the plants. Mayan is impressed, calling him dashing. Agredios admits he was the only viable heir, so he focuses on this instead of fun. Koenig skeptically asks how much of that story is true, to which Agredios concedes that he's no match for his sister Grier in the political arena. Agredios finds it depressing that trying to keep up with his sister makes him look like an assassin. Koenig can't help but chuckle. Soon both are laughing and Koenig apologizes. Grier playfully tells Koenig to give a real apology, but he refuses. At the city gates, Agredios explains they are from the barony of Fragen, taking Lord Fragen's nephew to school. He adds that the other two joined them after a tragedy in the marches. The guard lets them pass, sharing that the church seeks a swift end to the troubles. Once inside, they find the streets surprisingly quiet. They observe that prices for salt and wheat have doubled. Agredios notes that the nobility would use magic to crush any revolt in the name of peacekeeping. Napka wants to test the water, but needs a magnifier to do so. The miasma they are looking for is invisible to the naked eye. Koenig reveals he has a water sample given to him by Sesha. If the same contamination is in the capital's water, it could mean trouble for the whole city. Agredios knows only the physician's college has the right magnifiers and decides to borrow one. Napka offers to take them to Mayan's dorm to use as a meeting place. They arrive at the School of the Arts. Inside Mayan's small dorm, they quickly go over the plan. Agredios instructs Mayan to handle their finances and asks Napka to guide him to the physician's college. He then speaks privately with Koenig, noting how badly the church wanted him dead at the checkpoint and wondering if they made a deal with the nobles. Koenig replies that he is more worried about the kids. Koenig reveals that all his men, who grew up with him and Napka in an orphanage, did as well. They were ordered to die, but someone swapped his poison. He is certain it could only have been the bishop. Agredios questions why the bishop would set it up so only Koenig would survive. Determined to find out what the bishop is really after, Koenig prepares to leave. He entrusts his village and people to Agredios before departing. Agredios entrusts Mayan with her task and asks Napka to lead him to the college. As they walk, Napka mentions that children love Lord Ag, much like they love Koenig. Surprised, Agredios asks if it's because of his face, which makes Napka giggle. Hearing this, Agredios changes his mind about his plan to sneak in. Instead of sneaking into a college, Koenig marches boldly up to the grand church. He pushes past the guards and through the main doors. Koenig announces his return to Bishop Zera. The bishop remarks that he'd heard Koenig was killed by a bear. Koenig claims he was spared by the grace of the Lord, secretly wondering how the bishop knew the details of his faked death. The bishop cruelly admits he was the one who spent the lives of Koenig's men like coins. The bishop explains he offered Koenig's head to the nobles as a pretext to burn Achene's. He details the kingdom's political instability, with the nobility split into 3 factions, those loyal to the king, opportunists and militarists. This precarious situation, he claims, forced him to weigh the value of Koenig's life against the need to torch 20% of the kingdom's grain. He expresses his genuine happiness that Koenig escaped that doom. Bishop Zera continues, describing their nation as isolated and facing a spreading pestilence. He tells Koenig that his unique life, born of the king, raised among beast bloods and now wielding magic, holds particular value. The 3 noble factions, he reveals, share a common fear that another power may rise to take control amidst the chaos, and that Koenig, who yet lives, is to be that power. The bishop lays out his vision. Koenig is destined to be the hero who liberates the beast bloods, bringing magic from the nobles to the people and tearing the nation apart from within. Koenig realizes with despair that he should have known he would find no hope with the bishop. The bishop questions what hope he is referring to. Koenig knows he cannot trust a man who speaks of liberation with the same mouth that oppresses and decrees death. Koenig furiously calls the bishop a downright asshole. The bishop calmly states that a hero has no choice but to accept his mantle. God sees the struggling Koenig. The bishop threatens the lives of the orphans to motivate him, adding that he has grown used to making sacrifices. The bishop orders Koenig to be taken to the dungeon. Looking down from a balcony as Koenig is dragged away, he asks how many more heads must roll before Koenig will finally join his cause.